welcome to episode 6 of FilmStop. We just got back from Captain Marvel, and Bo here, who's the guest on the show, is dancing. And I don't think that that talks about his love for the movie, but that's exactly what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be talking about Captain Marvel, and just to kind of segment it out for those of you who haven't seen the movie, we're going to talk about we're going to do a spoiler-free reaction first, and then go into a spoiler discussion. That said, we watched the movie about 2 hours ago, and we have been drinking nonstop since then, so I apologize if we ramble. I will try to edit it as best as I can, but no promises there. Alright, let's get started on Captain Marvel. So my first thing that I want to sort of talk about is, before we get into Captain Marvel, give me your opinion on top 3 and top lowest 3 Marvel movies, so that we have some reference here, Bo.
Ooh, okay, so top 3, as of today, excluding Captain Marvel, I would say, is probably Infinity Wars, Thor Ragnarok, and I'm not really sure what the next one would be, but you know what? I would actually be tempted to say Winter Soldier, actually.
Wow. Okay. Bottom 3?
And bottom 3. Granted, I have not seen all the Marvel movies, but I would say Ant-Man 2, I haven't seen one. Oh, maybe I want to change Winter Soldier. Alright, bottom 3. Ant-Man 2, not because it's bad, because it's a great, funny movie, but, it's a silly movie, right? It didn't really have a whole lot of gravitas to it. Iron Man 2, I have not seen 3. And, what was the other one I said? Age of Ultron, because it was kind of redundant, quite frankly. And, by the way, before we get further into this, I did want to make a note. We did see this movie in 3D, and I would say that it added, in my opinion, 0 value to the movie. Just watch it in normal. It's fine.
We'll get to that.
All right,
we'll get to that. From my perspective, my top 3 Marvel movies, just for a reference point. So there is Ant-Man, which I absolutely love. Thor Ragnarok and Infinity War, in no particular order. Just those 3 movies together make the top crop for me.
Dark Horse, Guardians 2.
Yeah, no, I think the Guardians, both those movies are really good movies. But like you said about Ant-Man and the Wasp, they're funny movies. I didn't really take much home with them. So those 3 are my top 3. My bottom 3 are Iron Man 3, Thor, the Dark World is just a turd, and then I don't get the I don't know, the business and the critical review on Age of Ultron. Like, I just don't get it, and I don't think it was greatly reviewed either, but I just felt like it was an exhausting effort.
Yes, the other thing, I have not seen Thor 1 and 2, based on me hearing that it's, so, okay. I can't put them into my bottom, but I can see where it could be.
Yeah, one is mediocre. It's okay. Alright. With that, let's talk about Captain Marvel. We're still in the spoiler-free discussion area, so tell me what you think are, what was your overall sort of Cliff Notes view on Captain Marvel?
So, Captain Marvel, if I were to rate it, or talking spoilers in terms of, you know what, I'll just rate it in terms of spoiler-free. So, it is, I think, well-written. It is mostly well-acted, but here gets to the crux of it. I think the weakest point of the movie, ironically, is the lead in Brie Larson's role as, I don't think this is a spoiler, she's actually Captain Marvel, guys. But, I mean, she's not horrible, don't get me wrong, but I think all her various supports in some ways kind of outshine her. And we'll get into that in more detail, but, yeah, so I wouldn't say it's bad, but it's not great. I'd say middling, maybe. Well, definitely bottom half though.
Okay. Yeah, and all right. So my opinion, my Cliff Notes opinion on this is that I really enjoyed the movie. I thought that most of everything worked. I do think that tonally the movie straddled the line of, you know, a very serious and a funny movie at the very pretty well. Like Bo mentioned, the writing was pretty good, on point. I feel. I do agree with the standpoint that Brie Larson was perhaps the weakest point of Captain Marvel, because more that you think about it, these superhero movies are not just in isolation. They are about this character now becoming a part of a universe and bringing something to the universe. And in that sense, it's hard for me to see Brie Larson's Captain Marvel bringing something new to this universe. And it's hard for me to... We were talking about this, and it's hard for me to categorize her or summarize her performance as Captain Marvel with one word.
You know what we just forgot, both of us? I just noticed this in the Marvel universe. Doctor Strange.
Okay.
So that might display something in the bottom three, but yeah.
I don't think it was in the bottom three. To me, I think it's the mid region.
But that's the thing that's so hard about the MCU, right? Because none of them were bad. It's
sure.
It's
except
just,
for Thor: Dark World.
Well, I didn't see that one. But you know, there were. So then it really comes down to which one is the one that shone or shined the least.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I think it did some things actually quite well, but others,
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, it kind of falls in that category of like, it wasn't great. It was good, but not great.
Were you? What were your expectations going in?
I thought, okay, so my biggest fear. Ooh, are we getting into spoilers?
No, we're not. We're spoiler free right now.
Spoiler free. So there were some fears. I thought it might have contained some elements of Man of Steel. It managed to not be a complete dumpster dive in that aspect. So great. I thought it would be decent. I didn't think it would be absolutely awesome. And here's this weird market position that Marvel's in right now, right? We have Endgame coming up very soon. And we have Captain Marvel releasing, really just a month before that, right? 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of the prelude, but then it's like it's always being overshadowed. And I felt like they probably did that deliberately. So I assumed it would be okay. It'd be fine, but it wouldn't be like, oh my god, blow your brains out, crazy, awesome. So in that way, it kind of lived up to my expectations. Brie Larson is going back to it, you know, in all the promo footage, I don't know, my expectations were contained and they were mostly confirmed, let's put it that way.
Yeah, I think that, like, from a thematic sort of sense, I went in sort of expecting, or not expecting, I went in listening to people really sort of talking about how this is the first Marvel movie with a female superhero lead and, you know, all that pressure being built on the movie. I went in having this sort of sense of, you know, this movie needs to live up to that expectation. And I do think that was an undue amount of pressure being put on the movie, and I blame the media as much as myself on that, just because there's no reason to realistically to pressurize a movie, because it's just, at the end of the day, it's that. What you need to first evaluate it as is a movie. That said, when I came out of the movie, I think that they straddled the line of, you know, approaching the first female superhero in the Marvel Universe, and also the line of, you know, realistic flesh and bones character well.
Well, and we'll get into this a little bit later, but she's the first female lead, not the first female superhero. There's been plenty of female superheroes that have played very prominent roles in the Marvel movies. But you're right. I mean, that we knew there was going to be a little bit of girl power going in. And they did it well. On the whole, they did it well. I have no complaints about that. It's a part of it. It's a part of her identity, her character. And they did it, I think, tastefully. And enough that it's there, but tastefully in a subdued way where it wasn't overpowering the movie.
I will say this that I don't want to take away from any of the impact that the movie is going to make. No. But at the end of the day, I feel like it's unfair to overburden a movie from the standpoint of the impact that it's going to make even before it comes out. And I think from that standpoint, here's the thing. Expecting a movie to make a social impact or a cultural impact before it even releases is unfair. Because the movie was made because the movie was being made by XYZ people. They were making it because they had a story to tell. Let's just look at it that way. When it comes out and people like the movie and the story hits home and people take things away with them, characters away with them, and people love the impact that it has on them, that's great because that means that the story was well told. I feel like that should come after, not before.
Yeah, but I want to... Maybe I'm a little naive in this, but I want to say that for the most part, the only people going into it with those types of expectations, one way or the other, whether it'll succeed or fail in that respect, are the people already with that agenda going in. So, I kind of don't care about those people.
Right, and I agree with that. I think that from my standpoint, and I didn't really explicitly tell you this before we went into the movie, I was constantly telling you that we should probably not expect anything. We should just go in with clean slate. I was kind of expecting a little bit of a mediocre attempt at 2. Not saying that was met or not met. I do think that the movie did better than what I expected from that standpoint. So before we kind of go deeper into this review, I just want to set the stage, and it's a little late, but I want to set the stage for those of you who haven't seen the movie or the previews. Captain Marvel is the story of a extraterrestrial Kree warrior who finds herself caught in the middle of an intergalactic battle between her people and the Skrulls. And while she's doing this, she has some remnants or some memories from her time on Earth, whether or not she was actually a part of Earth or she is E.T. But it's her story, and as she makes her way back home, or back to Earth, sorry, she realizes whether or not she belongs here or she belongs out there, and it's another entry in the Marvel universe. So for those of you who haven't seen the previews, again, she is very strong and she's a superhero.
Yeah, it's a origin story of the likes of Iron Man or presumably Thor or Captain America or really any of those, right? It's a story of how she kind of came to be a hero and all that.
Okay, so let's get into some of the meat of this review. Tell me, no, we're not spoilers yet. Right. I will let you know. But tell me what you think about the acting, the performances.
Oh man, it's going to be hard to talk about without spoilers. So I alluded to this earlier. I thought that in a lot of ways, I think that, okay, the easy parts. So the supporting cast in this movie were, I thought, quite well done, quite strong. Two standouts, in my opinion, were Samuel L. Jackson's character and Jude Law's character, both of whom I thought did pretty much everything, maybe not perfectly, but, exactly in the role that they were supposed to. They did exactly what they needed to do. They worked with the writing. They brought out they elevated the writing, and they were great. They did exactly what they were supposed to do. And most of the supporting cast did something similar. I go back to the main character, though. She, the kindest way to interpret it, in my opinion, would be to say that she acted as an everyman, which is to say that it's hard to pin down her character in short words or phrases because it was... All right, guys, let's be real. If you're describing a character as stoic and they're not in a movie obviously about intense suffering, that's not the best sign.
Right, and I think I would add to that. I would say that in a movie that is so centered towards the mass or focused towards the mass, she was not a showman in her portrayal of the character. And
maybe that's a kinder way to put it as well. Yes.
And I think when I think back to like a Wonder Woman, and I know you haven't watched it, but Gal Gadot, she really puts on the show for the character that she's playing, and I think that Brie Larson brings a very realistic take. She brings a very like centered, underplayed performance, but I don't know if that's what was needed.
Exactly. In a different movie, in a more, traditionally dramatic type of movie, I think they would have been fine. In fact, it would have been perfect. But that's not that movie, right? This is Marvel. This is superhero. This is a little bit bigger than life. Everyone's kind of pumping it up a little bit to 11, and she's hovering at the 9 or 10, let's say. She's a little bit outshone, I think.
So, one performance that you didn't mention that I would love to bring some spotlight to is Ben Mendelsohn.
Yeah, and only because I couldn't remember his name offhand.
He to me single-handedly brought this groundedness to. I'm not going to get into who he plays, but the character that he plays, and you kind of really track along with this character as the character is taking you through the ups and downs of his journey, and that to me is both his work, but also great writing on that end. I will say the difference between him doing that role and Brie Larson is that he elevated what was written on page.
Yeah. Yes, and I think that's kind of what we're talking about is, which actors took the script and did what it was supposed to do, and just that, Brie Larson, and which actors kind of turned it up a notch, which is actually kind of everyone else.
Right. Okay, so what do you think about the direction?
Ooh, haven't had a time to really think too closely on that. I thought it was fine. It wasn't standout, but it was solid. There was no parts where I thought, ooh, that was grody, right? Like that didn't really exist, and you would expect that out of a big production, out of a Marvel movie. So not too much to comment there. It was solid, but not particularly noteworthy. I would say that
they played it to the Disney engine or the Marvel engine tunes, and I think that was fine. The one thing that I will say that stuck out like a sore thumb for me was a very specific portion where a song by No Doubt starts playing and action is orchestrated to it. It just did not work for me at all, and we'll get into that discussion more specifically. But there are also some plot holes that I just did not sort of tie along with. That said, I think we're close to sort of completing our discussion on the spoiler-free side. Final pointers, and tell me if in our rating system we only talk about whether or not you would watch this movie again, or if it's that bad, would you want your money back, or you would physically try to stop people from watching it. Where do you think this movie lies on your scale?
Yeah, no, I think it's fine. It's worth a watch. I'm not sure I would watch it again unless I were, prepping for a big, long Marvel marathon or something. It's worth a watch.
All right, so a one-time watch for you, and you're good. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I stay there too, and like you said, if I'm doing a marathon, or perhaps I might watch it again before I watch Endgame.
Right.
I'm not 100% on that, but I think it does a solid job of what it was supposed to be doing. It's not better than that. So that's the overview on Captain Marvel. Now we're going to get into spoiler discussion.
Spoiler alert.
Yep. And so if you haven't watched this movie, or if you just really don't care, actually, no, sorry. If you haven't watched this movie, do not listen to this part. If you don't care, or if you've watched this movie, stick with us. So, 1, 2, 3, spoiler discussion. All right, Bo, tell me what. We're going to start with the negatives here.
Oof.
All right, tell me what part irked you the most in the movie. Like, maybe it doesn't. It's not a part. It's a
thing.
It's a
trend. Okay. So, whenever I saw the main character, the person we're rooting for, the protagonist, as we like to say, step onto the screen, I'm like, oh, okay. And then whenever I saw Samuel L. Jackson step on the screen, I was like, yeah, bad mother. So it's not a plot point per se. And you know what? Let's talk to the plot. The plot was fine. It was not surprising. They tried to put a twist in it. I see what they're trying to do. They were trying to do kind of a Captain America thing, questioning your beliefs, questioning where you come from, all that stuff. But it's not surprising. It did okay. It's fine. But it wasn't a surprise. But the biggest downside, and I already touched on this in the non-spoiler part, is that, whenever Samuel L. Jackson or Jude Law or someone else was on screen, it was like, oh yeah, fun. And then Brie Larson is like, oh, I don't know what to feel. This is okay. Sufficient.
I think that, so yeah, I mean, in retrospect, I agree with you. I don't think during the movie it kind of jarred as much to me.
It jarred me a little bit in her resting, there's the whole resting face thing. She didn't have resting face. She had resting something. Content. Pensive. No, pensive's too strong. Pensive would have been good. Pensive would have been needed in some of these scenes. She didn't do pensive. She was like, oh, I'm here. And that's my problem.
And not to play defense on this, and I'm not going to justify what you're trying to say, but before haters come out there behind you, I understand where you're coming from, because I don't think that, I think what you're trying to say is, my interpretation of it is that she did not elevate the written word.
Well, yeah, there was that, and she yeah, I think she undertoned it. It's not just that she didn't elevate it, though. She kind of undertoned it a little bit. I mean, like I said, if any other movie, it would have been fine. Not really the case here, though. You're competing with a lot of big stars. You're competing with a lot of very dynamic, action-heavy roles. You gotta, I don't want to say overact, but you gotta really emote a little bit, and she was just subdued.
Mm-hmm. And I agree with that. I think that if there were a couple points where Brie Larson really showed more than what she was doing before or after those points, to me, there's this one sequence at the very beginning where she's fighting the Skrulls, and the Skrull yells, and she yells back at the Skrull while she's punching him in the face, and that, I mean, there's a little bit of mischievousness, there's a little bit of flaunting of powers that is happening, and that's the point where she's been taken in by the Skrulls, and they're kind of accessing her memories.
And that would have been fine if they had more of that character come through. But for the most part, we didn't, and we left the theater feeling like those types of parts might have been ad-libbed, which is not the best thing.
Mm-hmm. What do you think about the plot points where the antagonist turns into more of a I don't know, not an antagonist, but
basically they were the good guys all along. They were the persecuted guys. We're the spoilers, though.
The bait and switch. What did you feel about that?
The bait and switch, and Jude Law was like, "Oh, I was the bad guy all along."
Which is not a surprise as much. Right.
That's the not a problem. But here's my thing, is that from the moment that I saw Jude Law step onto the screen, he was in all green, and he had green eyes. I was like, yep, that's the bad guy. So it's not surprising. And yet, Disney still gets it to kind of work. In the back of your mind, it's like, it's going to happen. But you see it coming the whole way, but it still kind of worked. And I will give them credit in their writing and their overall production system on that. In that they kind of made it not completely trite and stupid, even though you saw it coming the whole time.
The thing that I would say about that is that they didn't... Okay, one part is that you guard it. You don't basically let the audience know what's coming and what's not coming, and it's a surprise element that someone like Night Shyamalan does fairly well. What I think that they did well here was that it justifying the bait and switch, because a lot of the times the bait and switch is not justified well. Here, I think it actually did make sense, and I think part of it goes to Ben Mendelsohn's performance to it, and of course Jude Law. But I think there is something to be said when something as important as an antagonist switching from someone you hate to someone you care about happens, the writing has to meet the performance, and it happened here.
And actually, you know what? I don't know her name, but I feel bad about that. But I did want to highlight one other character slash actress. Really, it's really the actress is Brie Larson's
Maria Rambeau.
Yes, Maria Rambeau, Carol Danvers. Mentor slash evil AI character. I thought she did a masterful.
Oh no, you're talking about. Sorry, you're not talking about her. You're Annette Bening is who you're talking about.
I thought she did very well considering that she was essentially playing two characters, but not really. But also yes, the whole thing in terms of that subplot of the whole quasi betrayal, I thought was very well. It was well done, even though not surprising.
Mm-hmm. What did you feel about the way they brought in sort of connections to the Marvel universe? There's the Ronin, there is, what's his name? The Jimon, Korath is the character.
Mm-hmm.
What did you feel about those sort of connections? And of course, Nick Fury, and then you have Coulson. Playing Greg.
How do you forget Phil Coulson?
Right. Well,
he's the main character of Marvel. I'm just kidding.
What did you feel about that?
Yeah, I thought it was fine. Overall, okay. Too small. This might be a technology thing. I thought that, despite Samuel L. Jackson's very good performance, his face was probably a little more rubbery than real life. Same with Coulson's, because they had to de-age him, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, it made sense. So there was a little bit of that, just enough that you kind of almost notice it in the back of your head, but overall, yeah, it was fine. It was a fine nod to the fact that they're earlier part in the universe. They had lots of 90s throwback in terms of music, in terms of the visuals, in terms of all that. Yeah, I thought that was fine.
Yeah, well, you bring up a good point. So the thing that I actually liked was the 90s throwback stuff. Mm-hmm. Like, they did well with, the Radio Shack reference, of course, the Blockbuster reference. Of course,
which are dead, so,
Right. That's so funny, right? But the other, the part that I loved was when they put the black box CD into the computer, and it's just, loading.
That was a good one.
And they're just standing there looking at the thing.
And that's the thing, right? Marvel under Disney has always done those little things quite well. So, yeah, I mean, that is consistent with the rest of work. And I think to a large degree, that's what carries it across, is that, that being a cohesive kind of world where those little details are kind of thought through for the most part.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about thematically, and we touched upon this earlier, but I want to dive deeper into thematically what the movie you think did. And let me say this: I think that, as I mentioned earlier, I think the movie. I went into the movie feeling that it had sort of unjust pressure on it to prove two different sort of worlds. One is the value of a Marvel Cinematic Universe movie, and the other one is for it to be the first Marvel movie to be a female-led superhero. Of course, we've had Ant-Man and the Wasp, but this one is just solely female-led superhero. How did you feel about thematically the different things that it was touching upon?
So, the female-led thing was it is a thing, but I feel, okay, my opinion, and this is just an opinion, is that Black Widow / Scarlett Johansson's been such a big part of the whole thing that technically she's never been in a lead role, but she's never really been in the background, right? She's always been right up below the surface, so it's true, but I feel like they had less to prove than maybe some might posit. Now, I think the biggest the biggest thing to me on this whole thing is Captain Marvel is in some ways, I don't know whether you want to say a continuation or a successor. Yes, successor is probably a better phrase to Captain America. And that is where, if you really put the movies in contrast, and granted, I didn't see the first one, but I did see Winter Soldier and Civil War, that's where it almost falls down a little bit. Because Captain America was... They explored similar themes. They explored themes of, one, a character that is very, very... I don't want to say headstrong, but very strong in their beliefs. Very dedicated, that kind of very type A personality character coming to kind of doubt some of the things that they believed in, or seeing where maybe their views of the world weren't 100%, and coming to terms with that. And that was a very clear parallel to me, but it's in that where Captain America, I don't know, it did better in that. Mm-hmm. Because maybe it's the acting, but maybe it's something else. Because
I would say part of that is because it's for Captain America, you have a grounded sense of relative morals, right? I mean, there's the American morals that you're coming into place with. In this case, you may not have that because she is an alien. For her existence, much of the movie, she is an alien.
Yes, actually, that's an interesting point because she kind of has to rediscover it in some ways, and she's still the same person, but now she believes different things. But she's still it's odd in some ways.
So for me, what I as opposed to what I went in with, and I mentioned this earlier, as opposed to what I went in with and what I came out with, I thought that the writing was just fully peppered in the fact that she is a quote unquote woman superhero. Like, she is super powered. She never backs down. She gets back up again. The superhero trait more than Brie Larson playing Captain Marvel. I think that was pretty well defined in the sense that when you get those little portions of her with her father or her brother or in the training in the boot camp or whatever it may be, I think they justly sort of brought forward those portions and kind of built her character well using those portions.
Yes. So yes, in the subtle, let's say, female superhero undertones, I can be everything I need to be. I am worthy of this power. I'm worthy of being myself. Yes, I think they did that subtly and well. With one exception, perhaps, and that's that musical theme that you touched on earlier. They kind of that part felt a little much.
That was jarring. Yes. That was jarring, and I think that it just was out of nowhere. I would have been totally fine. I get the '90s reference to it.
Yes,
I get it, but it was jarring in the sense that it was out of nowhere. It wasn't done. It wasn't set up before. Like how movies have like a random gramophone record. Actually, in this movie itself, they had that one sequence where she's going back into the AI, and you have "Come As You Are" playing with Nirvana, but they established that with that little gramophone or the record player right there. That's okay. They didn't do any of that and just like randomly started playing No Doubt. I think that so one or two of those things, yes, but I also think that to counter that, there was one or two other portions where, for example, you see the chinks in her armor, so that she's a real character. She's a real human being when she replies to that girl like, I don't even know who I am.
Yes.
Those are things that actually, to me, built this character a lot well. And I hope so. I hope that that's actually, built further a little bit as they move on with this character.
You see, but that's almost the tragedy of it. I mean, I think the moments, and they were moments, were very well done, and it fit very well. It fit in the context of a origin story. But what about the next one? The next one's not going to be an origin story.
Sure.
And that's where it, I don't want to say bothers me, but, well, yeah, it does bother me a little bit, because in the other Marvel universes, they very well did these origin stories where they very clearly established these characters, at least the ones I've seen. I haven't seen them all. And that kind of carries through, and the next chapter is really their development, right? How they grow as a character, how they discover new things about themselves. But now it's almost like the next... You kind of got halfway there, but you didn't... I mean, maybe it's going to be an opportunity to show more about the character, but, you know, you're not quite as well established. You're not... Okay, for instance, at the end of Iron Man, you knew exactly what Tony Stark was about. And
you could see the arc.
You could see the arc, you could see exactly where he could grow, and he could surprise you.
I would argue that you can see the arc with her character, too. But I can see where he can grow versus where she can grow is a different discussion.
Right, but where's she going to grow? She's going to discover what she's really about. She hasn't shown us. That's the problem.
Well, I think that she has, but I think that...
In the fact that she's strong and determined. I get that.
Determined, yes.
Determined, strong, those are great traits. Those don't make a character in themselves.
Right. Not a household character. Okay, so you touched upon next chapter. Let's go there. Elephant in the room, the end credit sequence, and what do you think? What do you expect? What do you expect with Endgame now that you've seen this movie?
Oh God! So I alluded to this at the beginning where they avoided the Man of Steel problem. See, here's the thing. The problem I see with this, potential problem, maybe they won't go there, is that Marvel, the whole MCU universe, right, all the media they put out, you know, Kevin Feige saying that, Feige, however you say his name, saying that, you know, she's the strongest character ever. That phrase disturbed me because it runs into the Superman syndrome, right? Why is it so hard to make a good Superman movie? Because if you're stronger than everyone else, then it's hard to make good, genuine conflict. Now, in this one, they
overcame that with this one.
Yes, in this one, they did very well with that, I thought, because it's a hard problem to overcome, because it's all about internal conflict.
They did better than Zack Snyder did.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. But now that she's overcome that, for the most part, yeah, that can linger some.
Mm-hmm.
What's Endgame going to be? Because if it's her coming in and solving all the problems, I don't think they'll do that.
I don't think it should be that.
Yeah, it definitely shouldn't be that. I don't think they're dumb enough to do that.
Right.
But it's still in the back of my head, kind of makes you worried.
Well, so she shows up. What did you feel about the end credit scene where they're trying to understand what this pager is about, and all of a sudden she's there right behind whatever her name is, Black Widow. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought Scarlett Johansson was a better actress. That's what I thought. I'll be honest.
That is actually not true, because she has a very dumbfounded look right when she shows up.
Brie Larson. But it was exactly the look she needed.
I'm saying Brie Larson has a very dumbfounded, like, even though she's supposed to be this, like, she's supposed to be in this zone where, like, why the hell did you call me? And she's supposed to be, you know, questioning this motive. She just looks very, like, expressionless.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is that Scarlett Johansson, right, she played that very well, and the contrast there is where, you know, you had Chris Evans, you had Scarlett Johansson, and there was one other person in the scene, I don't remember who it was, but they all did exactly, the old cast did exactly what they did, and then Brie Larson came in, she's like, guys?
I think it was Bruce Banner.
It might have been Bruce Banner.
Yeah.
But she just kind of looked out of place and like,
Yeah.
And that was a little odd, because that was the contrast, I think, that I kind of alluded to through the whole thing, where the Marvel Universe was built on these slightly, you know, just turned up to 11 type characters, and she's restrained.
Okay. So I think that not much has changed for me from what I was expecting from Endgame. I knew that she was going to be a powerful character coming into the movie. She is still going to be a powerful character. We all knew that she was going to show up. She showed up. I think that I will say this, that I really strongly hope that she doesn't dwarf, to your point, she doesn't dwarf the involvement of all these other characters, especially like characters like Paul Rudd, or Ant-Man, who basically is the way into Quantumverse, or you know, Romanov, or Captain America. Don Cheadle was the third one who shows up.
Yeah, Don Cheadle.
But
War Machine.
Yep. But the point is that they've gotten here as a team.
Yeah.
She should not make it. It should not become about her powers beating Thanos.
And that's the thing, right? Is that the whole thing was about Avengers being a team. It's literally power of teamwork, right? It's trite, but come on, you know, it worked. So what happens when power of teamwork meets person who's stronger than them? especially, man, how's Thor gonna react to that? That's
right. Thor is there too. Yeah.
Yeah. He's in his hoodie looking depressed, and now someone stronger than him. He's gonna be even more depressed. What's gonna happen? Chris Hemsworth, are you gonna be okay?
Hemsworth, dude. Hemsworth.
I don't care.
All right. Okay. So with that, we come to the end of this discussion. I will say I loved the little nod to the Indiana Jones sequence where she shoots.
Yes.
the phaser beam after Jude Law's like whole monologue, and sorry about that. That's my dog. He's claiming too that we're at the end of this episode, so we're gonna close this off. Thank you for being here with us, and if you have any thoughts, please leave your comments on. Oh, well, you can follow us on Twitter at SURHASPrakash and on Instagram at SURHA1912. Also, on our Facebook community, FilmStop. Anyways, thanks for being here, guys, and we'll catch you in the next episode. Bo, you want to say bye?
Bye, guys.